The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this broadcast belong solely to the author, Darnell E. Whitfield, and not to Life Church of Hampton Roads, Eagles Wings Ministries, WKQA, Freedom Radio 1110, committee, or other group or individual. If you have any questions concerning this disclaimer, you may contact the author at revwhitfield@live.com. Hello, friends. It's good to have you back here today with me. You know, these are the trying times. It was said during the Revolutionary War, these are the times that try men's soul, and these are trying times. But it had to happen. It had to happen. It had to happen that we come to this boiling point to get over the evil that is in our day. It's time for not only ordinary men and women, but for the church also to get itself together, because we have been so far away from doing God's will as the people of God that it's hard to tell if we're Christian or if we're whatever we are. It's just blurred as far as us being a people of God or being the people who are doing what the devil tells us to do. In this country, we are seeing many protests, and it's not just one man's death, but I think about the many deaths that have occurred at the hands of those who are supposed to protect and serve the public. Has gotten far away from. You know, me and my wife were looking at Adam 12 one night, and Angel said, you know, I wish police were like, you know, Jim and Pete on Adam 12. And I sort of chuckled, but deep down inside I said I wish it was like that too, honey. But you know, we are living in times where the devil is doing all that he can to destroy the fabric, not only of Christians, but the fabric of this United States. This has been long coming, and it's because we people will not sit down and talk to each other. So now we have to hear screaming and hollering. We have to hear things that should have been said long time ago. We are finally coming to the conclusion that we have to talk. You know, Marvin Gaye years ago had a song that he had sung called What's Going On. And in that song, let me read some of the words. It says that, brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know, we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know, we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so we can see what's going on. What's going on? He said that back in the early 70s. He sung this song back in the early 70s. And yet these words are still the cry of the black man, the brown man, or whoever, by the hands of police today. Think about it. Back then, picket lines, picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. I'm picketing. Now isn't it funny that this country was founded on people who totally got upset about England and how they were being taxed, and so they started to strike back. They had the Boston Tea Party, and we praised it. I praised it when I was a kid in school, when I read about the Boston Tea Party. And yet we've not thrown over any tea. All we are crying out for is justice. These police officers over the years have committed murder, and they were covered up by the police department. They were covered up by internal affairs. They were covered up. And now we are surprised that the people are sick and tired of being sick and tired of what the police are continuing to do. On the news, we got police officers, we've got police chiefs, commissioners saying, it's time for us to put a stop to what's going on. I'm speaking from the heart today. I had a planned message, but I say, you know what? It's time to speak from the heart. And friends, it's past time for us to get over what's been happening by trying to make change, positive change for all Americans. It's time for us to put an end to people calling the police because I cut my grass, or because I go out and I buy some groceries, or I'm parked in a space. It's time to stop it. It's time to stop the craziness. It's time to stop people from stopping a person because they're waiting for AAA to come and do something to fix their car. And so a white woman gets upset and calls the police department and says, I feel threatened by a person waiting for AAA to change a tire. It's time to stop this. It's time to stop these police from killing people almost at will. I looked at a video this week and the police officer is screaming, why are you trying to grab my gun? And the person's hands was nowhere near this police officer's gun. He wanted to make an excuse so he could shoot and kill this young black man. It's time to stop this. It's not only what happened to this man in Minnesota, George Floyd, but it's been happening from Trayvon Martin in recent times. It's been happening through the 1800s, through the 1900s, with lynchings being done almost on a daily basis. It's time for a change. Benjamin Franklin said something at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. He said, we must hang together, or we most assuredly hang alone. It's time for all Americans to realize that we are in this together. We have to hang together in order to make positive difference for everybody. Make a positive influence on each person's life, not just one side of the tracks, but all people in this country. You look back, we look back at the Japanese internment of people just because they were Asian. They locked them up. You think about the children who were locked up recently under this present administration. People being deported, the children being locked up in camps. We've got to stop this. We've got to stop the evangelicals who are saying that President Trump is sent from God. He is not sent from God. How do I know? Because my Bible teaches me that there are certain characteristics of a Christian. What is that? It is a person who is Christ-like. That's what the word Christian means. I see nothing that shows me this man is Christ-like. In fact, it shows the total opposite. It's like an antichrist. I'm not saying things to be on the side of Democrat or Republican. I could care less. I'm getting sick and tired of both. If there was a third party, I wish it would come along so that I have something positive to vote for, because it's picking between Democrat and Republican is like picking between the lesser of two evils. It's time for somebody to come along who wants positive change for our country, who wants to help the poor, who wants to right the wrongs that have been done in the past, who wants to pull people together. Our country has not been together for a long time. And it's time for us to pull together before some country outside of us rushes in and destroys our whole country. We have got to make positive change. Can we do it? Of course we can. We can do it. We have the power to, because the power lies within each one of us. Love lies within each one of us. When we look at the book of James, and that's the book that I was going to use this morning, I'm going to still use it. James, the 2nd chapter, beginning with the 8th verse. James says, if you really keep the royal law found in scriptures, what is the royal law? The royal law is love your neighbor as yourself. James says you're doing right. But James also says, but if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at one point is guilty of breaking all of it, all the law. For he who said, you shall not commit adultery, also said, you shall not murder. But if you do not commit adultery, but do commit murder, you have become a lawbreaker. Speak and act, James says, as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom. Because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. We need to show mercy, saints. I think about this leader in the White House right now. And I think about how he feels about foreigners. And it's not everyone. It's just people of color mostly. And how he feels about them. The Bible teaches in the Old Testament as well as the New that we should invite a stranger in. We should take care of their needs while they're in our presence. But yet we have someone in the White House who totally goes against the Word of God. And yet these evangelicals like Paula White and Franklin Graham and different others say that he is sent from God. Evidently, somebody's not studying their Bibles. Somebody is not showing the world that they care about the things of God by telling the truth. It's time to stop pussyfooting around with people who are not of God and making it seem like they're okay in their state. True Christians, true prophets, true leaders call out sin. Why? Because we don't want that person to go to hell. We want to see a person be a success in Christ as well as a success in life. But you won't be a success if you don't face the truth. The truth is, it's time for us to stop covering up sin and to start exposing sin. For all you preachers out there who support this administration, that's fine. You have that right. That is your right to support whoever you want. I've supported every president ever since I began voting back in the 70s. I believe it is my duty as a Christian to pray for every president, including the one sitting in the White House right now. I didn't show a difference. But yet, when Obama came in, there was a great difference being shown. You had senators who were saying, like Mitch McConnell, who was saying, well, we need to stop this man. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that nothing he brings to the table passes. Already premeditated hatred and no mercy to this man. I, on the other hand, pray for everybody. One of the most inspiring presidents to me was Ronald Reagan, who said many things, but a lot of what he said would have pulled the country together if people really listened to him. We really should have pulled more together during his reign as president. I love Just about all the presidents except for Richard Nixon and this man who's sitting in the White House now, because they are not men who want love and peace to endure. Let me get on this subject. We've been having a lot of protests, and peaceful protests for the most part, but we've had people who came in who were of ill repute. I could say that they were people who just came in to start trouble. There's always going to be a troublemaker. I don't care what you have. And so these troublemakers have gotten into the areas of the protests and have used the protesters as a cover for them destroying places, for just burning up buildings and looting and rioting. I don't support that at all. It is evil, it is ignorant, and it needs to stop. And I hope and pray that every last one of them gets caught, because it needs to stop. We need to start acting like we've got sense. We are not ignorant people, but we do ignorant things. It's time for us to stop this mess. It's time for us to stand up for what is right. And I stand with the protesters. I stand with them because change won't happen any other way, so they found a way to get everybody to listen to what they're saying. And so I think everybody's listening now to what they're saying. And we need to pull with them. We need to be a positive force that's working in the world today. Saints and friends, on July the 7th, that's a Tuesday, for 24 hours, we're calling for a national blackout of shopping at any store or any place that is other than black. We are going to sometimes, and this can be proven through history. If you can't hit the heart, if you hit the pocket, people listen. When Martin Luther King put together protests during the 60s, one city, Birmingham, Alabama. That was a racist place back then. But when blacks got together and said, hey, we're not going to shop at any store that supports systemic racism. We're not going to do it. And they didn't. And you ought to see the pictures of Birmingham, Alabama during the time of Christmas shopping that year that they were being boycotted. It looked like a ghost town. But it was effective because it got the merchants to come together and to approach leadership, political leadership, and say, you've got to do something about this. We're going to lose everything if we don't get those people back in our stores. So I support this. So anybody, whether you're black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever you are, come together on July the 7th all day for 24 hours and not shop at any other place other than a black-owned business. Because it's time to wake up, America. It's time to wake up. It's time to do what's right. Look in your heart. If you really look deep in your heart, you can see that some of the things that are happening are not right. Even police officers, police commissioners all across America, it doesn't matter what their color is. I've seen more white police leadership say, we've got to stop this. We've got to make changes. And we've got to make changes. We all have to come together. We all have to start having a dialogue. The only way you're going to know a person is to talk to them. Perfect example is myself. When I first worked for a communications company here in Virginia, Cox Communications, the first day I was there, I was being introduced around to different people, and a couple of the guys say, Don, don't talk to that person right there because that person is a racist. Oh man, really? Yeah, that person is a racist. You don't want to talk to him because he'll shoot you down. They gave me a challenge. So what do? The next day that I come in for work, I go over to the guy and I say, hey, how you doing? My name is Don Whitfield. I'm new here, and you are. And he looked at me and he said, I don't want to shake your hand. And so I got kind of nervous. He said, I don't want to shake your hand until after I finish drinking my coffee. We became best friends, and when I retired, he asked me to stay in touch with him. Now, suppose if I'd have took what these people said and said, oh, he's a racist and he won't talk to nobody, then I'd be just like them. And I'd have carried a idea along and had aggression and bad feelings about this person, all because of what somebody else says. And I thank God for a mother who taught me that never take what people say. Find out for yourself. And that's what I did. And I thank God that I did. Saints, we have got to do better about how we treat each other. I take people one at a time. I don't group a whole bunch of people together. All white people are not evil. All black people are not good. All Asian people are not bad. All Latino people are not good. You have good and bad in every group. And we've just got to choose the ones that are good for us and dismiss the rest. But we won't know if we don't talk to each other. We've got to talk to each other. So friends, I implore you this week, do your best to keep your tempers down while we're going through this period of time. Pray that God will work in these situations so to bring about change in America that is good for everybody and that is equal to everybody. Pray for the president. Pray for the incoming president. Pray for our country, period. Pray for the world. And let love abide. Remember, the royal law is love thy neighbor like you love yourself. God bless you all till next time.